Scream 3. The poster's taglines are, as you can see, the most terrifying scream is always the last, and welcome to the final act, which is quite hilarious knowing, of course, that eventually the fourth film would be made 10 years later, and now in January we will also have the fifth one in cinemas. In any case, this film tries to put a cap on what at the time was the Scream trilogy. In doing so, inventing a ridiculous plot that tries to tie everything back together, going back to the very first film. It has to do with family, it also has to do with Hollywood, as a large part of the action takes place on the sets of the movie within the movie called Stab 3. Now let's get this out of the way. So far, this is easily the weakest of the Scream films, and I think it has to do with the fact that compared to the previous two, this one is definitely off balance. See, the Scream franchise for me has always been about balancing, being a meta commentary on something, a slasher film, on sequels, now on trilogies, with being actually competent examples of that thing, of whatever the movie was commenting on at the time. Slashers, sequels, and now trilogies. I think previously that balance was well achieved. Now it goes too far in the meta commentary direction, and the film simply isn't as tight anymore. It feels much more unfocused and chaotic and all over the place. Perhaps it also had to do with the fact that there were actually 3 different versions of the script circulating among the crew to prevent leaks, and decisions were made fairly late into the process as to even letting the actors know who the killer is going to be. Tonally speaking, it also feels much less serious, more staged but also humorous. The deaths are less violent, everything has this lighter, more absurdist tone, and there are even a couple of really unexpected cameos. Jay and Silent Bob show up, as well as Carrie Fisher, playing someone that looks just like her but isn't her. Also, there is a pretty significant subplot in here that's about Hollywood culture of producers, directors, and in general people of power, demanding sexual favors in exchange for work. And the movie doesn't really end up exploring all this explicitly, but there is a strong dark undertone throughout. And when you actually think about it yourself, it's a pretty fucked up part of an otherwise light-hearted movie. And what makes it so bizarre is that the film was actually produced by Harvey Weinstein and Miramax, and it's just so weird and creepy because it almost makes it seem like all those accusations and shitty things he did that ended up being his total downfall were just not a big deal at the time, to the point that he was comfortable including it in a movie he was making. It's almost like he was taunting everyone, saying, look, I do this, everybody's doing this, what are you gonna do about it? As I said, quite bizarre. In any case, I felt that this installment is the weakest of the Scream films. It's not completely terrible, but it certainly lacks the charming balance between pastiche and competence that the previous two managed to achieve.